morning. My name's Jim Creamer, and you're listening to Mortgage Savvy Radio, the show that keeps you informed and helps you make better decisions when it comes to purchasing and financing your home. Thanks for joining us today. We have a great guest on the program this week. His name is Lance Fogel. He is a $1 million real estate agent. He deals primarily in properties that are in excess of $7 million. He is a local agent out of Newport Beach. We'll look forward to speaking with him later on in the show and getting his perspective on the markets and how he conducts his business. It's always interesting to hear how people generate business in their business approach. We have a great featured property today with an open house between 1 and 5 p.m. This is a property that has an awesome view of the Back Bay. The information is actually on our Facebook page right now at facebook.com/SwiftLoans. We'll speak about the property in detail later on in the program, but if you'd like, you can go to the Facebook page right now and check it out. Also, we love listener questions here on the program. Please feel free to go to the Facebook page and post your listener questions or send an email to radio@jimcreamer.com with your listener questions. I will respond to every question, and if I read your question here on the program, I will send you a nice gift from one of the local shops here in the Newport Mesa area. Let's take a look at the market roundup for the week and get an idea of how the rates ended up for the week. We do this by starting off looking at the Freddie Mac rate survey of lenders that they publish each week on Thursday. Basically, it's a comparative analysis of lenders and their rates. We look at the 30-year and the 15-year fixed rates. This week, Freddie Mac survey says that the average 30-year fixed rate was 3.49%. That's down from the previous week at 3.55%. Rates are coming down, obviously. And the average 15-year fixed rate was 2.77%. That's also down from the previous week at 2.85%. Now, both of these loans are priced with lender origination fees. That's how Freddie Mac does the survey. This week, both of these loans are priced with almost 5/8 of a percentage point in lender origination fees. This doesn't include title, escrow, notary, recording, all the third-party fees that are associated with the loan. Now, later on in the segment, we're going to take a look at how these rates, the average Freddie Mac survey rates, compare to the Swift Loan funding rates, and all the time, pretty much, the Swift Loan funding rates are lower. We're offering zero closing cost loans at actually even lower rates than what the average says. So we'll get to that here later on in the program. Now, this week, interest rates reached their all-time lows, and on Thursday, lenders actually came out with their lowest rate sheets ever. Friday was a confirmation of that, with rates actually getting even better. And the interesting thing about Friday is that it was kind of a dark day in terms of economic data, so there wasn't really anything that was moving the market on Friday. Now, throughout the week, it was an interesting week as far as the bonds go. When I come into the office on any given morning, basically, I open up my computer and I'm tracking the Fannie Mae 3% mortgage-backed security. And that is what I look at to determine where rates are going during the day and whether I should be locking or floating, and how I advise my customers. So that Fannie Mae 3.0 is also where you can go and get a mortgage with a lot of these lenders at 3% on a 30-year fixed. However, you're paying points and fees on that. Most people, they don't want to pay points and fees. So when the rates tick up 1/8, you're offered a 3 1/8 or a 3 1/4 or a 3 3/8 or a 3 1/2 on a 30-year fixed. Every incremental increase in rate actually decreases the closing costs because the secondary market and wholesale lenders are actually paying premiums for interest rates that are higher than the base rate, this 3% base rate. So I track that during the day. Now, every single day this week, the pricing on that base rate has actually gotten better. It's been an interesting week because the trading activity hasn't had a lot of volatility on a day-to-day basis, but every single day since that FOMC announcement last week, we've opened up in terms of the premium that's being paid for that rate. and therefore the closing costs for the rates around 3% are actually getting lower. If this continues, and it looks like there is a trend, we should see zero closing cost rates getting closer to that 3%. So this is going to be an interesting little ride that we're about to take here with interest rates. Now, what that's doing, and the Fed has actually been hinting at this QE3, the quantitative easing, for the last 6 months. Now, they really jumped full on into it last week, and that's what's causing these interest rates to go even lower. But over the last 6 months, we've seen improvements in property values. We've seen obviously improvements in interest rates, building starts, building permits, home sales, all real estate related, because the Fed has lowered, or they've manipulated basically the interest rates to keep the rates low. Now, their primary focus really is on improving unemployment, and we haven't seen a lot of that or any really improvement in unemployment. So that's going to be interesting to see how the Fed's new aggressive stance impacts probably the most important component of our economy, which is the unemployment rate. Now remember, rates are still really, really good. In fact, as I just mentioned, they're at the lowest points ever. The Swift loan funding rates are really incredible. This week, we're again at the top of our lender lists when you're running rates on our fast quote engine. Our 30-year fixed rate for zero closing costs with an APR of 3.25% is just an incredible opportunity to save a lot of money on your mortgage. The 15-year fixed rate that we offer at Swift Loan Funding is 2.75% APR. Now, that hasn't really decreased significantly over the prior weeks, but as lenders get caught up and more comfortable and settled into this new trading range for interest rates, we should see the 15-year fixed rates, and I'm talking about the zero closing cost rates, which is where most people are refinancing. We should see those rates on the 15-year start to go down. Now, you can actually go ahead and check these rates for yourself. We have a live rate pricing engine on our company website at swiftloanfunding.com, and they tie directly to our wholesale lender rate sheets. Just go to the Fast Quote tab on the swiftloanfunding.com website, enter your qualifications, and the resulting rates are the latest live lender rates with all the possible closing costs factored in. Our guest today is Lance Fogel. He is the principal of the Fogel Group. You're a real estate agent, and you've been doing this for how long?
I've been doing real estate for just about 7 years now.
Now, not just any real estate, though.
No. I concentrate on the big stuff, 5 million and above, usually.
How did you get into that?
I got into real estate because of a bad transaction that I was one of the principals in, and I decided that I would never use an outside real estate agent again, and I would get my own license. I stumbled into the actual real estate as a career by mistake, or not by mistake. It was by opportunity, I should say. I was referred to a friend's friend who was looking for a home, and ended up representing him on a $9 million transaction.
These are complicated transactions. I mean, they're not. It's just not. You can't get an FHA loan or a regular conventional loan. I'm assuming most of these transactions are cash.
They are.
They can be complex.
Very complex. People's lives at this level are, from a financial standpoint, are very complex, and the level of understanding and sophistication and input into their own attitude, their own thoughts, wants into the transaction is not what you want, because it complicates things, and I have that all the time.
So with that in mind, expectations is a big component too of this type of a transaction. You have expectations, you have ego, you have kind of misguided expectations. How do you realign those between the buyers and the sellers?
Well, that's the biggest challenge in today's market is the seller's expectation versus what the market will bring in, and the two are not related. Expectations could be based on how much a seller has into a property, and they expect to get at least the same out. And I've even had people, even in this market, calculating their cost of funds and expecting to get an average of 3% a year in addition to whatever the house has cost them up to date. I sit them down and explain to them the fact that the market is in a place that is completely unrelated to what they have in mind, what they expect out of this. And I give them an opportunity where we can run the listing at their expectation or close to it for a certain amount of time. If activity dictates that it's just not working, we agree beforehand that there will be a price adjustment, usually at 30 days, 60 days. It depends on the listing agreement. It depends on the price of the property. But if they do not, and as you stated, egos are often involved. If they do not agree to that, I have quite a few times turned a substantial listing down. And the reason is I'm not in this business to list homes as notches in my belt. I'm in this business to sell homes. That's the way I make money. And they have to understand that. If they are looking for someone who's going to put pretty pictures of their house in the local magazines and the local newspapers, and that's their goal, then I'm not the person for them.
They're hiring you for your expertise. The pretty pictures and the marketing, that's, I guess, more of a given, but it's your expertise that sets you above the other person that can just put their property on the MLS. What would you define as your special expertise when it comes to selling these types of homes?
It's my unique approach. I don't necessarily believe in putting those pretty pictures in those magazines because I feel that it's redundant advertising. I feel that the people looking at those are usually neighbors, people in the community. They're looking at the society pages to see whose photographs are there, and they're looking at the real estate section to see whose homes they may recognize, or looking at it as if it were an Architectural Digest magazine. Those are not the buyers. The buyers, by and large, today find property online. That's where most of it is. Also, if I look at the statistics in terms of buyers representation, now I represent I'm a buyer's agent primarily. That's my background. But on my listings, about a third of them I double end. So I represent both the buyer and the seller, which tells you, and that is probably 3 to 4 times what some of my competition represents. That tells you that I know where to find buyers. I go to unconventional places. I have relationships with attorneys.